Welcome back to the Real Texas Radio Podcast. I am your host, Bronin. I've got a big show planned today. Per usual, we are going to be talking about those pesky digital kiosks that the lobbyists successfully got the city of Dallas to purchase and litter all over our downtown. Well, they did an even better job in Austin, where they're going to be getting even more digital kiosks and other homeless enabling amenities for downtown. We're going to talk about DART and some recently announced upgrades to facilities. And the marquee segment of the show, we're going to be talking about Kim Tolbert's an alleged discussion that she had with the Mavs CEO surfaced last week. And Mayor Eric Johnson sat down for an in-depth interview regarding his thoughts on the future of Dallas City Hall and professional sports in the city. But before we dive in, please make sure to like, subscribe, follow, download the Real Texas Radio Podcast from wherever you stream, and make sure that you follow the show on X at RTR_Bronin, RTR_Bronin. All right now, you're listening to the Real Texas Radio Podcast. I'm your host, Bronin, just a fed-up taxpayer bringing you all of your Texas, local, and national news. We'll get into Dallas City Hall and the mayor's interview and comments and the Mavs, I think, what is it, the manager, the CEO, I don't know. I don't know anything about sports. Rick Welts, whoever he is, we'll get into his Friday interview, his comments about the Mavs and what he's been talking about with Kim Tolbert, the city manager of Dallas. But first, I want to talk about DART again. So DART, they released, I guess, a memo or a press alert last week about over $70 million worth of upgrades to lighting and to trash cans and technology and benches and bus cabins, presumably. Now, if you're like me, you're a Dallas resident and you have buses running through your neighborhood and you have bus cabins, then you probably have noticed that those bus cabins are really just homeless shelters. At least that's what I notice. And usually the stinkiest, nastiest, most insane mental patient who's really should be a founding member of the Crack Island Confederacy, who'd be a perfect candidate to go to Crack Island, who has, without a doubt, turned down endless permanent supportive housing and rehab and services of all kind that you get to pay for as a taxpayer, in lieu of the opportunity to turn the bus cabin into their own personal house and stink it up so bad that you, a normal person who would possibly be interested in paying a fare to ride the DART, you would never, ever want to have to spend any time there at the bus cabin because of this person. And then at the bus cabin, they've got the signs, text DART at whatever 5-digit number to find out when the bus is going to arrive. And then you text the number, if you've ever done that, which you probably never have. I've done it just for laughs, and then it sends you a time that's completely inaccurate. And, I did actually find, if you go into the DART app, I think it's called the Go Pass, they do have a live map in there. But for whatever reason, DART has decided, I guess they spend money on bonuses for executives, and, they've got millions of dollars for bonuses. But rather than spend on just having Apple Maps and Google Maps and, the apps that basically every single person in the United States uses for transportation, you want to calculate how far it's going to take you to drive from A to B, you go to Google Maps or Apple Maps or whatever. And, I've mentioned it before, I'm from Boston. 20 years ago, the city of Boston, they put out the technology, and riders who, many of them who worked in the tech industry, they were very excited. They were happy to help with the project. I think there might have been open source data. And so 20 years ago, or more, I was in high school more than 20 years ago, and the city of Boston was able to link the real-time arrival and departure times of buses to Google Maps or Apple Maps or whatever. You were able to figure it out. And DART still hasn't done that. It's 2026. Same thing. You go to the light rail stop and it's got the estimated arrival time of the whatever, the green line, the orange line. And then, it says it's coming in 10 minutes, and then, 5 minutes passes, and then you look up and, 15 minutes. And then the time just keeps changing. And it's really frustrating and really difficult to be able to plan a trip and convince people to ride the DART who might actually pay for it when you can't even tell them when it's coming. I find that really frustrating. So apparently, as part of these upgrades over the next 5 years, $71 million or so, they're going to be working to get that technology expanded. So I'm just going to read you a little bit. This is from CBS Texas, which is really just citing the DART press announcement. The board said it will add and replace critical infrastructure at the stops, which include 1,350 shelters that have benches. Well, that's good, but I hope the infrastructure upgrades don't include any glass, because the homeless, junkie, bum, criminal, vagrant, mental patient, ne'er-do-well, recidivist, reprobates, that's one of the first orders of operation for them, is smashing the glass to smithereens. They're also going to have real-time arrival displays. Great. Over 20 years after the technology became available. Now, DART they're going to have this. That's great. And modern passenger technology. Oh, you mean like the USB charging ports on the brand new Silver Line that just opened not even 6 months ago, that according to some riders, according to some bleepsters in Dallas who have ridden the Silver Line, they don't even work on the brand new Silver Line. Is that the kind of technology we can expect? Also included are 1,500 steel benches, 3,000 trash cans, 500 lights. DART said it will also expand amenities at bus stops over the next several years while adding 350 new shelter locations, upgrading more than 1,000 existing shelters and improving accessibility with new concrete pads, sidewalks, and curb ramps. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Who do you think is going to be taking the greatest advantage of all of these upgrades, particularly to the bus cabins, where we know a certain group is already heavily, overly represented?
We have a lot of mentally insane killers. I mean, you can't even talk to them. It'd be nice if you could have a little reason, but you can't even reason. These are seriously ill people.
Well, I'm so glad that that's the group that we're creating all of these amenities for, to the tune of $71 million. Because let's face it, that's who's going to be at the bus cabins. They're going to continue to be at the bus cabins and the light rail stop and everywhere else, and just turning the light rail infrastructure and all of the DART infrastructure into just even more unusable and unattractive to anybody who might think about getting onto the DART. DART said the upgrades are intended to boost accessibility and comfort with better lighting, seating, and protection from weather. Oh, just what the bums need. More of an incentive to go to the bus cabin. Put a better roof on it. Great. and providing passengers with real-time service information. You know what I would like to see DART invest in? How about some homeless repellent technology? Like, how about if a bum it comes along with a supermarket carriage full of crap, and they start to linger at the bus stop. They're eyeing it because they're about to set up camp, literally. Then how about a drone comes by with just like a piercing, high-pitched sound that's just so uncomfortable that it just causes the bum to keep pushing along. And the drone should probably follow the bum for a little bit and just make sure they get really far away. That's the kind of infrastructure and technology upgrades that I would like to see at DART. And, I attended virtually the budget town hall meeting for my district, District 14, which was a collaboration between, or among, rather, I should say, Jesse Moreno, District 2. I'm talking about Dallas City Councilors here, Paula Blackman, District 9, Adam Basildua, District 7, Paul Ridley, my councilor, District 14. And Adam Basildua, he revealed during the town hall, or you might call it, that DART is going to be expanding the trolley service. It's going to be expanding the trolley service in his District 7. It's going to start at MLK Boulevard and Fair Park, or the MLK station, Fair Park, I believe. And it's going to go all the way to downtown, or the Cedars, I believe.
Clang, clang, clang went the trolley. Ding, ding, ding went the bell.
Yeah, and a lot of people, they like the trolleys, or they say they do. A lot of white people, they're really into streetcars, and they're really into trains. They don't take them very much, not in Dallas anyway, or DFW, but white people, especially Democrat, phony progressive liberals, they get really a lot of adulation about any kind of light rail streetcar projects. They don't like the bus so much for all the reasons I just explained. Even though typically the bus is a lot more dynamic, and you're much more likely to get closer from A to B on the bus than you are the light rail or the TRE or these streetcars anyway in Dallas. And then, of course, the cost to establish a streetcar line is exorbitant compared to the ridership. So Adam Basildua revealed that we are potentially, I haven't seen an official announcement, we're going to be getting a new streetcar line. And then two of the other counselors, Jesse Moreno and Paula Blackman, they got very excited about, they're trying to push for a streetcar in their district going up. I don't know if it would go up Gaston Avenue or what the route would be, East Dallas anyway, into downtown. And you know what? I wonder if a lot of people realize, older people probably realize, older than me. I don't think any younger people realize, but you know that there used to be streetcars and trolleys all over the country, and they were electric. They ran on electricity. They were everywhere. If you were in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, which maybe you never heard of if you've never been to Western Mass, or you've never been up to New England, Pittsfield, there used to be light rail. There used to be light rail all over the place. It used to be all over Dallas. It used to be all over the United States. We had this light rail network, and it was very affordable. And then what happened? The ever convenient personal vehicle surged in popularity, and the light rail started to disappear. And of course, the car manufacturers were all in cahoots with the government to get rid of this light rail that was very affordable and was very available throughout the United States for ordinary working and poor, and normal people took it. And so they got rid of that. And now it's this big trendy desire to reestablish the light rail. And as we know, 20% of Americans who purchase a new car, their monthly payment is about $1,000. And we know a lot more than For the rest, it's approaching $1,000, and that's before insurance, and that's before fuel, and that's before maintenance, and that's before registration, and all of the other fees associated with car ownership that make owning a private vehicle about equivalent, or in some cases even more, than paying a mortgage or paying rent. And yet we know that most Americans, they've been conned into believing that that's freedom. That's freedom, man. You're not gonna take my car away from me. Oh, and by car I mean SUV or pickup truck, the size of which cars has also grown very noticeably. For example, I have a neighbor with a small pickup truck that he's had for a long time. I dare say it's an antique, over 25 years, right? And you know, they used to make pickup trucks, and they'd use the what is it, the chassis? They just use a sedan chassis. Am I saying that correctly? Sorry, I don't know about cars too much either, other than they're very expensive. And I am glad that I haven't had to own one personally outright for going on 7 or 8 years. And so my neighbor, he's got this pickup truck, and they don't make that anymore. They don't make anything like that anymore. You want to get a small pickup truck, it's huge, the smallest pickup truck. They got rid of that, even though it's obviously a very desirable vehicle because it's been stolen multiple times from my property. We share a parking lot. It's been the target of vandalism. It's been the target of theft. So there's obviously a market for it, but the vehicle manufacturers, they've decided, no, we're going to make bigger vehicles, which, by the way, are much more dangerous. They cause, you're much more likely to die or be severely injured, particularly if you're a pedestrian who is struck by one of these much larger vehicles. But you know, it's freedom. It's freedom, man. It's all about freedom. So there's my rant about that in the streetcars. So down in Austin, Texas, I actually tuned into the Austin City Council meeting that was on Thursday, March 26th, because my Twitter fam, my Austin watchdogs, thank you very much. I appreciate all of the Austin watchdogs, the Austin public transit watchdogs. Well, they posted that there was going to be a vote on these digital kiosks by Ike Smart City. Does that ring a bell, Dallas voters? Oh, yes, it does, because Dallas just approved the digital kiosk contract for, I think, over 100, I believe, somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 or 130 of these kiosks. And how this Ike City kiosk, whatever the hell it's called, operates is they obviously lobby and they get their hooks into a city councilor or two. And then between Dallas and Austin city councils, it's been pretty evident who the bag man is, shall we say, for these digital kiosks. The councilor who they get to deliver this grandiose speech about the life-changing capability of these digital kiosks. And in Dallas, the bagman was Adam Basildua. Dart got his hooks into him, and they got their hooks into Dart as well. The dartboard president, he was all over it, and they spent years getting this contract over the line. And most of the city council just went along with it. The only people who were critical of the contract were Kara Mendelson, per usual, from District 12, far north Dallas. She probably won't be getting any kiosks. And Paul Ridley, my District 14, which includes downtown, he's definitely going to be getting... We will definitely be getting these digital kiosks, which are nothing more than just a large cell phone, by the way, with Wi-Fi access. And who do you think is going to be logging into the Wi-Fi in terms of the population here in Dallas? What group do you think is most going to be, when they're not destroying them and urinating and defecating on them and getting into physical altercation with them, confusing them with a demon? Who do you think most is going to be using these kiosks? Who could you venture a guess? Could it be Could it be the homeless? Well, Austin, again, with very little critical thinking and almost no pushback at all from most of the council. The bagman in Austin for this is Chito Vela. He's the mayor pro tem. And I captured a little bit of his speech in favor of the digital kiosks. Here we go. Oh, have we got the sound here? Hold on a moment. Let's see if we can get the sound working here. Me, producer, host, duties.
How long they have to wait. Again, these are going to provide Wi-Fi, potentially also. Again, I don't know who's going to get them or what the final features are, but that would be another additional huge benefit for bus riders that can log on to a Wi-Fi system and use that to do whatever they need to do at the bus stop. And then finally, similar to the conversation we were having about the Jack Brown cleaners rezoning, this is going to bring revenue to Capital Metro at a time when sales taxes may be floundering, and we're going to need
they're going to bring in so much revenue. And by the way, how many does he want? He wants 400. 400. Yeah, as many as we can get. One of the other counselors said, maybe can we start off with a cap of like 100 and just see how these work out before we go gangbusters? And he was shut down. Nobody went for that. One other counselor went for that. No discussion, essentially, in either direction. And then the bagman, Chelo Vita Chelo, whatever the hell his name is. Oh no! We can have like a few on every corner. There's so much space, and the Wi-Fi. We're gonna get the Wi-Fi. Again, who's gonna be logging into that Wi-Fi? Would you say? They had the public hearing on it as well, so there were speakers on both sides. Most people were opposed. If you lived there, you're opposed. But they got one. I think they rally some of the low IQ voters to perform the duties of seminar callers, as Rush Limbaugh used to call them. And one woman said, what these kiosks will be able to do? They're going to let parents be able to log in and look at their children's homework assignment and grades. Somebody actually said that, and they didn't burst out into laughter after saying it.
Sure, Dan.
Yeah, this is going to be the homework portal, and you know what? If you need to find out where a local restaurant is, this digital kiosk will be able to help you find it. You mean like exactly what my smartphone can do, which every single person essentially in the United States, regardless of their socioeconomic status or immigration status, has? I used to teach in one of the poorest schools in the United States in Jackson, Mississippi. And, 2012, 2013, every kid just about had a smartphone. Their mother may have had the flip phone, but the kid had the iPhone. I didn't have an iPhone yet. I was a late adopter. But everybody in that school, and I'm going to go ahead and say that probably almost everybody in that school qualified for the cornucopia of welfare benefits. I'm not trying to disparage. I'm just putting things in context. They had a smartphone with internet. And they're just these pandering people on these city councils.
Black sidekick on the next thing.
I had a sidekick. Remember that? The T-Mobile sidekick? Oh, I thought I was hot stuff with my sidekick. I held on to that for a long time. So, anyway, they pass basically the unlimited cap for the kiosks, and it's going to bring in revenue. It's going to bring in revenue for the city. Oh, yes. And then right after that, the Chito Vela, Mayor Pro Tem in Austin, releases a statement claiming that he's going to pursue the maximum allowable increase in the property tax rate just 4 months after the city of Austin voted down over 60% of voters rejected a property tax hike for homeless people. And then the same guy turns around and approves as the bagman for the kiosk company, as many kiosks as they can squeeze in, which all of the homeless are no doubt going to be all over the place. Even though the voters just said, no, we're turning down the property tax hike. The reason for the property tax hike was more crap for homeless people that don't deserve anything more than they have already been over generously provided. Okay, let's talk about Dallas City Hall because we've got some updates. And really two pieces going on here. Mayor Eric Johnson, he sat down for a fairly in-depth interview, really drilling down about Dallas City Hall, the southern sector of downtown, the Mavs, the Stars, what's going on there, all of the drama with the CBS affiliate here in Dallas. So I'm going to talk about that. But first, some comments surfaced last week, I think on the 27th. Rick Welts, he's the CEO of the Dallas Mavericks, the professional basketball team. I think he went on a sports radio show, and he divulged some details about a conversation that he had with city manager Kim Tolbert last year. So why don't I go ahead and just start there with that cut. Rick Welts.
Over a year ago, city manager Tolbert came to us and said, look, I got to move out of City Hall. I can't afford to operate what we do in that building going forward for the taxpayers. And we said, okay, how's that hanging with us? But at some point in time, you'll tell us what's available. And then we can sit down and have a conversation about it. We would like to have 50 contiguous acres. It's not up to us to decide whether City Hall is available or not. We're waiting for the city. It's up to the city to decide, what's in the best interest.
Yeah, so, if I'm Rick Welts, the Mavericks, their lease is up at the American Airlines Center in 2031. They want their own arena. I believe, I've heard rumor anyway, that the Mavs were offered potentially hundreds of millions of dollars to just stay at the perfectly serviceable American Airlines Center where they currently are. The purpose-built arena that's only 25 years old. Looks brand new to me, but whatever. What do I know about professional sports? And so Rick Welts, he was supposed to have a decision already made by March where they're going to go because they have to build this arena and on 50 acres, whatever they want. And now we know how things move in Dallas, but as slow as Dallas is, they're moving along with potentially demolishing, abandoning, selling City Hall, moving somewhere else. And now the Mavs, they've pushed their decision out, I think, to June. So by June, they need to know if they're going to be there downtown. And so I wonder if Rick Welts was thinking, this will move things along. This will do a little bleep stirring here and really push Dallas to get their act together, spur some movement. I don't know. Maybe that's what he was thinking. So now, however, the problem is, well, depending on where you are politically on this issue, so now it's revealed that Kim Tolbert, the city manager, was already exploring a year ago, outside of public view, of getting rid of the City Hall site and handing it over to the Mavs, selling it or whatever taxpayer incentives they're going to get. And so now the Save City Hall people who are already angry about all manner of things related to this process, from the $1 billion report that they don't trust, from the staff figures that they didn't believe. And so now this is like the smoking gun. Here, the Mavs CEO, we heard it straight out of the horse's mouth. He's talking to the city manager a year in advance. And the city council, they just voted to explore options. When? Last month? Or March 4th? That was the meeting. So, that meeting, by the way, that vote went 9-6 in favor to explore options to leave City Hall. So now they're mad at Kim Tolbert, some. You know what? I don't have a problem with Kim Tolbert. I'm going to just say that. I don't have a problem with Kim Tolbert. And if I'm Kim Tolbert And I know that I just lost AT&T, the headquarters, the biggest private sector employer downtown, not in the city of Dallas. I think that's Southwest Airlines might be the biggest private sector employer. But I just lost AT&T. And now I face the prospect of potentially losing two of the other biggest businesses in downtown, the Stars and the Mavs. If I plan on continuing to have a career in city management, and I don't know what her plans are. I think she's in her 50s. I don't know if she wants to retire out of Dallas, if she's got ambitions to move elsewhere. She saw that the Austin City Council, most of whom are a bunch of morons, they were stupid enough to believe her predecessor in Dallas, and she's the protege of him, Broadnax. They saw that Austin was stupid enough to shower him lavishly with even more pay than Dallas was giving him, and even more bennies and goodies and freebies. So if she thinks that a future like that is in store for her, then I don't think she can survive by losing now the Mavs and the Stars on top of AT&T. I just don't see how you can have that on your resume and survive if she's planning to move. I have no idea. So that's her top priority, and which it should be, honestly. That means, I think in her mind, she can survive demolishing City Hall. And you know what? I think that most of the city council, they want to leave anyway. So even if obviously 4 new councilors have come on in the last 9 months, right? So they were elected after Kim Tolbert is having these discussions, allegedly, according to Rick Welts, CEO of the Mavs. So those 4, obviously I don't know, maybe Laura Cadena she was in City Hall. I think she was in HR, the staffer for Omar Narvaez. In any case, they want to leave the building anyway. Maxie Johnson, Jaime Resendez, Laurie Blair, all of the south of I-30 representatives, they want to get the hell out of the building. And, I don't think that Kim Tolbert has to worry, even if, no counselor is called for her resignation or anything like that. I doubt that's going to happen. And I think that she's got support of most of the council, to be quite honest. So that's some of the drama going on. And then Mayor Johnson. So like I said, he sits down for this interview with CBS. And let's go ahead, and I'm going to just play. I pulled quite a few cuts, so I'm just going to start in order. I think I'm going to play them in order, and then you can decide for yourself. So this is Johnson he was asked, what does he want to do about City Hall?
The best thing that we can for our taxpayers. Not a good thing, but the best thing with the taxpayers' dollars. So I think we need to understand what our options are in terms of staying in the building and repairing it. I guess there's the do nothing scenario that could, the status quo is always an option, and when you're making policy, that's an option. Making the repairs at those numbers you just stated is an option. Possibly moving to another building is an option, but we need to know what that looks like and the costs associated with that.
Yeah, so he was fairly diplomatic up until a point, and then he says this in a follow-up answer.
So I would like to see what comes back and what they say this site could unlock. I mean, does my gut tell me that the best use of this part of downtown is not to be a government center, which I think is kind of a dated concept in and of itself, to have a cluster of government buildings right in the middle of what could be the most vibrant part of your downtown that by definition closes at 5:00 p.m. My gut tells me that's not a great idea, but I want the city manager to go through the exercise of actually exploring what private development options there would be. What interest would there be in this site? And if there are really great economic development opportunities for the city that would be unlocked by us leaving this site, I would be very, very compelled by that.
Yeah, so I think, he may be diplomatic and saying that he's really open to either option, staying and repairing or leaving. But the previous interview that he gave, that was a few months ago, maybe in December, he sounded really flippant about whatever we do, don't ever build a government building using a famous architect ever again. That was a bad decision in his eyes. So he perked up a lot. And then I thought this was kind of interesting. Johnson got into this idea about the transparency of the whole process, which I certainly have been critical of. And I think everybody in the preservationist Save Dallas City Hall camp has been very critical of the transparency and the order of operations of this whole thing. And so here is Johnson he's being asked about the transparency.
She says there's been a lack of transparency.
And by she, the interviewer, he's referring to the former Dallas mayor, Laura Miller.
And riddled with self-interest, this whole process. And what do you say to those people who feel that way?
Well, I'm not sure why former Mayor Miller feels that way, because I can tell you that the process has been the definition of transparent. I mean, it's just not true that this process hasn't been transparent. You can go back to when I initially sent out a memo. I put it in writing. I distributed it publicly saying to the council, I want a committee to look at.
I'm going to just pause right there. There's a little bit more of the cut. I'll come back to that. Oh, I sent out a memo. I sent a memo out that I wanted to, potentially demolish the city hall. So, I did my due diligence on the transparency front. I released a memo. How many people are reading those memos, do you think? Would you say that it's more, about equal, or less than the amount of people who show up to vote in city council and mayoral May elections? And, okay, I criticize frequently. It's a legitimate argument. The public needs to be more engaged with what is going on locally, that without a doubt. But, as few people who watch local news, as few people as are left who watch the local news, a lot more people probably saw this interview that Mayor Johnson just gave to the local CBS affiliate than are reading memos that the City Hall is publishing and putting on their website. And so that's just one point right there. And let's continue the cut.
Options for City Hall. So that was very transparent. The meetings that were called subsequent to my request were all open to the public. Discussions were had at those meetings. And every single thing that has happened has been compelled by council action. The getting the data from CBRE.
So, yeah, I know. You know where I first learned about this? It was during a committee meeting. I think either the finance committee or the economic dev committee, whichever one Bagman, Chad West, whichever one he chairs. I think it's finance. He's a south of I-30 councilman, by the way, leading the charge to get out of City Hall. And he's not going to change his mind, I wouldn't say. And, the developers were at the meeting. They were already offering up buildings that the city could rent with taxpayer funds. So it was really hard not to get the impression that the fix was already in from the start. Mayor Johnson, it would have been transparent if you gave an interview or you delivered a speech or something like that where you expressed your vision for what you wanted. That would have been due more than 6 months ago. Hey, Dallas residents, guess what? This building that we're in, it needs a lot of repairs. We don't know how much it's going to cost. We're going to commission a study. I'm going to recommend that to the council for a vote. We'd like to see how much the repairs cost. Oh, and by the way, the Mavs, their lease is up in 2031. They're looking around. They've made it clear they don't want to stay at American Airlines. We're trying to convince them to stay there because, frankly, it's insane for them not to, in my humble opinion. We're offering them tons of your money to stay. They're rejecting it. They want their own building. They want to own every single bar, restaurant, club, retail around the 50-acre parcel that they want, because they want to bogart and cartel every single dollar that anybody who's even thinking about the Mavs spends. And guess what? Guess where they're looking around? Happens to be the City Hall site. And you know what? Seeing as this area of downtown sucks and it's just a bunch of parking lots and homeless, junkie, bum, criminal, vagrant, mental patient, ne'er-do-well, recidivist reprobates, maybe we can reimagine it. And if you're one of the people who believes that we have this shortage of housing, well, where better than downtown to put up a bunch of towers or mid-rises or whatever you want to do. And seeing as, we're going to be rebuilding the convention center and the Dallas Wings are going to be moving down here, and there's some other key development being spent, it could be a good idea. I probably would have started the process like that. I would have controlled the narrative from the start, and I wouldn't have let the bleep stirrers and the critics and the preservationists, or just ordinary Dallas residents who care about architecture in downtown and City Hall and feel like they get burned all the time, I wouldn't have let them accuse me of not doing things transparently. So that was a very defensive interview. It was a reactive interview when Johnson, he should have been more proactive from the start. That would have been my preference. And last cut that I will play here, this is Johnson. He is opining on the future of the Mavs and the Stars in Dallas.
But suffice it to say, keeping the Dallas Stars and keeping the Dallas Mavericks playing in the city of Dallas is one of the highest priorities of my administration. It has been since I got here. This didn't creep up on anybody. Any idea that any of this is taking us off guard or catching us off guard or taking us by surprise is insane. Like, we've known for a long time when these leases are coming up and what people want. We've known for a long time that the Mavericks want, going back to when Mark Cuban owned the team, they want their own arena. We've known that for a while. So we've been talking, and we continue to talk to them about what we're both trying to accomplish.
Yeah. So, I know the Valley View site, there's speculation about the Mavs are potentially interested in the Valley View site in North Dallas. And that didn't come up in this interview with Johnson. It seemed very downtown focused. But what about the Stars, though? Are the Stars looking at Valley View? Presumably they know that there's 100 or 110 acres available there. Apparently, the Stars and the Mavs, they hate each other and they are looking to decouple, which I don't know. I have one friend in Dallas who, he's a real sports bro. He just, a walking encyclopedia of all things sports. Good guy. I've talked to him about this. And he thinks it's nuts when any arrangement where you've got the basketball team and the hockey team that are playing together in the same arena, when they decouple and they go and do their own thing, it just seems crazy to him. And look at the Bruins and the Celtics in Boston. That's probably got to be one of the most profitable venues in the United States and one of the most profitable professional sports marriages in the United States. Again, the little that I know about sports, but so that's another thing. The Mavs, they're certainly getting all the attention, it seems. So I hope Johnson is being truthful there, and I don't have a reason to disbelieve him that he and the city manager are working really hard to keep the Stars. And where will they go? Somewhere else downtown? It seems crazy that you would build a facility for the Dallas Wings, who are apparently the worst professional women's team in the league. Why wouldn't you build the Stars, the arena at the convention center? If you were going to be building an arena and that the Stars want to leave, or I don't know if it is feasible for the Stars to just remain at the American Airlines Center, give them the deal to stay at the American Airlines Center. I don't know. Again, well, Johnson, I don't think I played the cut, but he pointed out, we can't reveal everything to the public and give up our leverage. We completely understand that. When you're talking about real estate, you need to play it close to the vest. So I appreciate that. Anyway, I think this is a good place to stop. Thanks for listening to my rambling. If you hung in there until the end, please follow the show. Download, like those episodes, tell a friend about the Real Texas Radio podcast, streaming everywhere on all the big platforms, and you can follow me on X at RTR_Bronin, RTR_Bronin. I will catch you on the next episode.